The slot and lock product I'm building here is a simple portacage, but the construction techniques are very similar throughout any slot and lock product. One of the best things to do when you get the product is lay the components out to make sure that you're familiar with them. Have a look at your check sheet that comes with the product, and also have a look at the instructions so that you have an awareness of where parts go. Here we've got the top, the bottom, the uprights, the corner connectors, the braces which come with this particular kit, and the netting. The first thing we're going to build is the top of the cage. Now if your cage has got braces, make sure that you put the brace mounts on to the horizontals first before you put the corner connectors together. The next step is to build the top of the cage, which involves joining the horizontal sections together with the corner connectors. It's really good to work on a flat surface here, and also when you're doing this, make sure that the screws are facing upwards. It makes them easier to screw together, and also when the cage is finally assembled, this will be the other way round and the screws won't catch in the netting. Simply push the bars into the connector, so it should be an easy fit, and then with a posi drive screwdriver, tighten the screw. You don't have to over tighten it, stop like that, and then the next one goes in like that. All of the screws on the slot and lock are stainless steel, and they're posi drive number 2, which is a very common screwdriver bit size. It's really important to get the right screw head for the job because you'll get a very positive drive from it. I just finished putting together the base rail. This is a portacage, so it has a base rail. Ordinary cages don't have them. And it's simply 4 connectors that are linked by 4 aluminium bars. The next stage is to put the uprights in. That's the upright in place. You need to put the brace mount on at this stage, which will brace the top of the cage. It simply slides on. Don't forget that each upright on this particular cage has a brace mount. To lock the upright in place, we simply need to tighten the screw in this position here. You can use your finger just to make sure that the upright is sitting flush with the base of the connector, and simply tighten. I'm going to fit the top of the cage now. Notice that the screws, when I turn it over, are going to be facing downwards. It simply lifts over and then drops on top of the uprights. It might be useful to have another person helping you, but this is a small cage, so it should be quite easy. And this technique is the same for all slot and lock cage type products. I'm now going to tighten up the corner screws. Again, you don't need to over tighten, just nip them up. Same on this one here. Just work your way around the cage at this point, tightening up all the corners. Right, now that the top's on, the next stage on this particular portacage is to put the braces on. Now, portacage have 3-way bracing. They go across the top and across between the vertical and the horizontal. If you've got braces, they may just well be between the horizontal and the vertical. Put them in place without the screws initially. That just helps you position them. Just line the hole up, slide them in, and as again said, portacage, we've got one that goes across the top, and then you can put the bolts in. Final job is just to put the bolts through on the stays and tighten them up. They're all stainless steel screws. And then finally, once the brace is at 45 degrees, and you can adjust that, tighten the locking screw on there. Again, you don't have to over tighten it, and that'll hold the brace nice and firmly. Right, that's the framework of the Portacage built. And because it's a Portacage and it gets moved around, we've fully braced the corners. Now, braces are a great idea, and they're an optional extra for other cages as well. And if you live in an area where your garden is exposed to high winds, we really recommend them. They make the structure much more rigid and give you that bit extra strength. And the final stage now is to fit the netting. Right, I'm going to fit the net now to the Portacage. And because it's a Portacage and the idea is you lift it up and move it around complete with the netting, we can actually turn the cage frame over, and then I've cut the net to the right size and simply fold the net up and then attach it with the net ties. It's far easier this way. Because the framework is now positioned in the centre of the netting and the framework is now upside down, it's much easier to work with the base rail at this height rather than if you're doing it on the ground. So then it's simply a case of putting the releasable cable ties or net ties through, and I just work around doing that, one on each side. Obviously, if this wasn't the Portacage, the framework would be in the ground and you'd simply drape the netting over it and then peg it into the ground with ground pegs. If you make a mistake, you can really easily slip these off again and put it on a different position. It's really easy. On the corners, I like to put the net ties actually over the connectors, and they're held in place by the ridge on the connector here. Right, this is the last net tie going on the base rail. Don't forget this is upside down because it's a Portacage. I'm then going to go around and snip off the tags. You can leave them on if you want to. I just think it looks neater. And then you've probably noticed by now that you're left with these rather unsightly wings. Now, you can simply pull them around like that and then tie them in if you want, but if you want things to look a little bit neater, you can do what I'm about to do, which is cut them off. Right, before we cut the little side wing off here, I've just cable tied the netting neatly in place, so you end up with a very definite corner piece like that. And then I'm simply going to cut down with a nice sharp pair of scissors and trim off the excess. And also, if you want just to neaten at the end, you can trim off any other bits of loose netting as well. Right, that's the slot and lock Portacage netted. Now I'm going to turn it round and go and find something to put it over.